welcome to Lynes on Design. I'm Debbie Lynes, here today with our dear friend John Iannazzo at Liberty. We're talking today, we're going to ask our expert. On the show today, we're going to do two things. We're going to ask our expert, a professional in the field of shades. Then we're going to take it the opposite direction. We're going to look at finishing touches, and we're going to talk about everything from rods to finials to top treatments, ways that we can soften a room. So it should be a lot of fun. Let's get right into it today and talk about why it's so important to have a professional when you're doing window treatments.
Well, you're going to invest a lot into your windows, and it's not something you do every year, or every month, or even every couple of years. So you really want it to work and work for the long haul. Be the best it can, best it can be.
One of the things that you do is you really advocate a Hunter Douglas product. And I know that you have been to seminars and conferences for years and years, and you have found that Hunter Douglas really is one of the best products out there. What is it for you that convinces you that it is a great product?
The innovation and the warranty. They really stand behind their products, and they're always coming out with something new. And what's really great about that is they're always working towards the future. So even if they make something that doesn't quite work, which has happened, we have a couple of products that have been discontinued, they still stand behind those, and we've had those replaced with other things that do work.
What I'd love to have you talk about is when you go to conferences, they actually include you in helping decide what is popular, what works.
I've been a part of several focus groups.
Why is that so important?
They're looking for feedback, what works, what doesn't work, and things are always changing. Even duet honeycomb shades have been around forever. There's always improvements, there's always something new with every single line to make it better year to year.
What are some things that are specific? You know, for me, now that I have 8 grandkids, and I know you've got a son too, I always think of child safety as something that's really critical when I'm dealing with a shade, because I think for years we had the cords that were really difficult to maneuver. And we always stuck them on top of the windowsill to make sure our kids didn't get into them. Now what do they have? What's popular?
Everything is designed with safety in mind. That's Hunter Douglas's one of their taglines. Everything is made to be child safe as possible. From cordless to power to retractable cords, like this is called Ultra Glide. So every time you pull the cord, it retracts up, stays nice and short. You avoid this. The old-fashioned cord dragging on the floor.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm used to. This kind of cord that,
So you can do motorized. We can do the retractable cord, so these cords never drag on the floor. We can do cordless with a handle.
Oh, it really is with safety.
So that way there's no cords, there's no, there's nothing hanging down.
You know, talking about, because you are an expert, and that's why we're here, and we're talking about having professionals to do, to help you get the correct window treatment for the setting that you're putting it in. What do you look for?
I usually ask what kind of room they're going in and what you're looking to accomplish. Why are we covering the windows? Some people want light and privacy, but they want it to be up more than it's down. So if that's the case, honeycomb shades work well because when they're down, you have coverage, you have privacy. We can do them room darkening. When they're up, they stack small, so you have your whole window open. If you're not going to, if you want something in between, if you have neighbors or you're on a golf course, we can do something like the silhouette. So really thinking about why you're covering your windows is important, because different things, do different things. It's kind of simple to say.
Well, no, that's exactly right. You use different treatments to create different ambiances. And also, I know that we live here in the low country in the south, and heat is a real issue for us.
Heat is a real issue, again, a lot of these are very good for insulating the windows. The honeycomb shades, again, back to those. And the vignette modern Roman shades are also good insulators. They will stop a lot of that really hot sun in the summer. From coming in. If you get the afternoon sun coming in, you can put these down and really shade the room. The screen shades work very well.
See, I love these.
These will sort you see out, but you can really cut that harsh sun.
And again, how does it work if I am a client and I have no clue? How do you all do it? What do you work?
Well, we go 2 ways. Sometimes we go out first and measure the windows and look at, then come into the store. Sometimes we have the people come into the store first. It really depends on what works best for everybody's schedule.
I know, makes sense.
Sometimes it's better to look at the different options first. If you really have no idea, that way we can go over all the options, look at all different samples, go over the different types of ways to raise and lower. Cordless shades are nice, but if your windows are 12 feet in the air and no one can reach them, cordless doesn't work very well.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. John, why is it, I mean, I can get shades anywhere. Frankly, I can get them at any hardware store, I can get them at any big box store. Why go to someone who is a professional?
Oh, because you can get shades anywhere, but you're making an investment in your windows, so you want them done right. You don't want to have to redo them in 3 years when you find out they don't work, or to find out they're the wrong kind of shade. If you want something that's going to be up and out of the way and nice and clean and stop a lot of heat, and you go with a wood blind that has a long cord and a ugly stack at the top, it's not really doing what you want it to do.
And let me talk about windows for a second as far as an investment. What people don't realize is they'll design the exterior of their house, they'll buy fantastic furniture. When it comes time to do the window treatments, they're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. It is an investment. It is something that when you do a window treatment, in my recommendation, you get the best you can get. Because most of the time, if you do a window treatment right, you're not going to be redoing it or renovating
12
it.
years, yeah, you're good to go for a number of years.
I know from a professional point of view, again, Hunter Douglas stands behind their product is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, they have a lifetime limited warranty, and people ask all the time, whose lifetime? They wonder if it's mine or theirs. It's the lifetime of the shade, as it turns out.
Okay.
So if you're nice to the shade and you take care of everything and you do it the way it's supposed to be, it's covered for as long as you own it.
Okay.
If the dog chews it up or the kids climb it, and I've had both that happen at my house,
yeah.
it's not covered for, when John decides to climb the blind.
Right, this is not a good thing.
But if you take care of it like you do everything else, like your hardwood floors, your leather sofa, it will last you as long as you own it.
Again, since we're asking the expert, let's talk about new trends. What's trending in the world of shades these days?
Roman shades are very popular.
See, I
We're doing
love
a
the
lot in
look.
Roman. And we have a couple different Roman shades right here. This is a more traditional style Roman with the battens. This is called a woven texture Roman shade. And this
Pull that
is
up
kind
again.
of the screen shade type.
Okay.
We can do these with an independent operable liner, so you can have the shade down, an independent operable liner, and then you can put the liner down behind it for room darkening.
Oh, see, this is the reason you need to come in and check all this out. Okay, so this would be my room darkening. This would be my pretty.
Exactly.
So for a bedroom, this would be really nice.
That would be really nice, yes. You could have the lining up during the day and get the light in and have a little bit of privacy.
Okay.
And at night, drop that liner and have total privacy.
We're asking the expert, we're talking about what's trending, and I have to say this, I am like, match your trim. Whenever you do a shade, match your trim. And John says, get over yourself, Debbie.
Well, most of the time we do match the trim color.
Exactly.
But we have a lot of different colors now, more colors than ever, blues, pink, red, and see here's a green one.
Yeah,
I mean,
all the taupes are in, they're gorgeous.
Purples and grays are big now.
Oh, purples and grays are big now. Talk to me as I'm watching this motorized shade go up and down. It's funny when I mention it to my design clients, many of them are like, oh gosh, that is so cool, but A, I bet it's really expensive, and B, I bet it won't work.
It's more reasonably priced than you would think.
Okay.
It's more expensive than a traditional cord, but it's not as expensive as people think. And they work very, very well.
I was going to say, when do you recommend we use that?
Any place that, convenience. Hard to reach windows, even easy. We used to only do them on hard to reach windows. Now, if you have a whole bank of windows across the back of your house, you don't want to go through and pull 10 different cords. We can do it off of one remote. You can press the all button and raise all the shades at once. You can do them individually. We can even hook them up to do them through your iPhone or iPad.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Is that probably the newest thing that's come out?
That is, yeah, among the newest things that come out.
So do I have to have a special connection, or do you do all that for me too?
There is a couple components that we have to hook up to your wireless router, and you have to have internet in your house, of course, to do it. But yeah, it's pretty easy to do.
Oh,
it's
so amazing to me, all the little magical tricks that you all have. I tell you what we're going to do. Let me just recap before we take a quick break and tell you the takeaway from this segment. When you ask the expert and a professional, here's what I've learned today. Child safety is paramount. You can get things that will help insulate.
Yes.
You can do anything from opaque to blackout to sheer.
Correct.
There's something for every window that you have.
Yes.
And to me, most importantly, it is be realistic when you talk about a budget for your window treatments, because you won't regret it if you get quality the first time.
Exactly.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. There's a lot more to come here on Lynes on Design. Let's take just a minute and talk designer to viewer. You know, windows are tricky, complicated, and you want them to do what they're supposed to do when it comes to treating them. So that is number one, why we ask an expert and go to a professional. You will not regret it. When we talk about safety, imagine if you have children. Safety is a number one issue. Let's say as we get older and we don't necessarily have the strength or dexterity we did, it's going to be really important to be able to put those window treatments up and down or side to side. And third, one of the things that I really like to think about is when you sleep. Do you need blackout? Do you not? There are a lot of reasons that a professional can really make the difference between a good window treatment and a great one. Back here on Lines on Design again with John Iannazzo. We're having a ball at Liberty today, and right now in this segment we're going to take a shift from talking about blinds. We're going to talk about finishing touches, and I don't mean finishing touches like, oh, let's pick a pretty fabric. We're talking about the brain surgery of window treatments, and that is rods and finials and grommets and all of the things that it takes to make a perfect window treatment perfect. And it can be complicated. We were just laughing about that before. There are so many nuances, so many things that can go right, so many things that can go wrong, and that is why you absolutely have to have a pro. All right, John, let's talk from a designer point of view. This is one of my favorite things to do. From a client point of view, this is something that intimidates my clients probably more than anything.
I would say, yeah.
You know, don't you think, the
Absolutely.
hardware piece of it?
Yep.
What I'd like to do is chat first, kind of do a broad overview of, we've got our fabric. What else do we need to hang that drape?
My first question looking at rods is, which one do you like? Everybody will pick out something right away, and then we'll talk about whether or not that will work for what we're trying to accomplish on your window.
Okay.
The thing people say they want the most is they just want a rod with rings, they just want to draw it back and forth across the window.
But that's not, though, that was in 1956. Now,
it doesn't work, because when you have a wood pole with a wood ring, there's a lot of friction. It's not as easy as you think it's going to be.
Okay.
There's always a catch to it.
All right.
So, you know, we can still do wooden rods with the rings. These are nice for side panels, things that don't get moved very often.
Ooh, okay. That's our takeaway one, side panels. Okay.
Yeah. So if it's going to be drawn a couple times a year, a couple times a month, these work fine, but you do have to dress it each time. It's not controlled like a traverse rod.
Okay, traverse rod means what?
A traverse rod is just a rod with a track that when you pull a cord or have a wand, it draws back and forth.
It's kind of what you think about when you think about it more traditional drapery.
A more traditional drapery rod, like
exactly.
This is a traverse rod. A traditional drapery rod, simple, easy.
No brainer.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, most of these, not I should say most of these, a lot of these have the traverse rod built into the decorative rod.
Ah.
So you can get the function of the traverse rod with the design of the pole.
And I tell you what's fun is there's something for everyone when it comes to rods, and I think that's what makes it so complicated. No longer is it just the white traverse rod that everybody uses. You've got to talk about the rod, finials. Let's talk about that.
Mix and match finials.
Of course you can.
There are several different companies here without getting too involved on who's who and what's what. You can more or less get any finial with any rod and almost any finish.
And these are finials too?
These are finials too.
Let's talk to everybody for just a second about what a finial really is, what the purpose is, and why they're important.
I don't know the exact definition, but I would say it's the decorative end piece on the rod.
Excellent. Love him. That's why he's the pro.
And some of these, to me, remind me of doorknobs.
See, to me, they're microphones.
Microphones, okay.
Just saying, whatever.
But yeah, there's, I mean, more or less any style you can think of.
Look, I think they're fabulous. And we're talking about a million finishes, too. I think, again, we're talking about the rod, number one. We're talking about the way the rod works, number two.
Yes.
We're talking about the finish of the rod.
And the size of the rod as well. You can see we have different 2-inch rod, 1 3/8, 1-inch rod. So there's all different size rods.
Metal.
Metal and wood, yeah. It depends on the room, the size of the draperies, the height, the scale, the width.
Are you completely overwhelmed yet? Because this is why we have a pro. This is why designers working with their professional group who do window treatments are really so important. You know, one of the things I want to talk about are grommets. I think that's a real look now. We see it in, you know, the renovation hardware and Pottery Barn catalogs and things like that. Where do you see using a grommeted window treatment?
We do a lot of the grommet top draperies and panels. More so on the stationary panels that don't get moved very often because you do have to dress it each time.
Okay.
They do work as far as drawing them back and forth. One thing to be careful of is the width, though, because a lot of rods, even some of the larger ones, require a center bracket.
Oh.
So, which means if it's a center bracket, you can't draw it past that bracket. There are some of these rods that have, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but there is a split on the
Oh,
the
cool.
rod. So when there's a
Cool.
weight, when I use the fishing weight for this one, they will slide past the bracket. But again, with every single one being independent, it's not quite as easy as just taking it and closing my draperies and being done. There's more to get hung up on.
Well, and we were laughing, like we said before, this really is a neurosurgery of design in many ways. And windows are, like we said before in the first, they're tricky, they're complicated, and you want to get them right the first time, especially when you're doing something with fabric. What do you see, again, trending? We were talking a little bit about what's trending. Are you seeing a more contemporary rod these days? Or are you seeing the big, heavy, wood fluted rods?
We do more of the medium size. Some are a little bit larger. I'd say this size, it's a 2-inch rod.
Okay.
With it has rings, but it's still a traverse rod. So it's made to look like just the rod with rings like we were talking about, but it does actually have the function of a traverse rod.
Of a traverse rod. And when we're talking about finishing touches, sometimes it's not just the rod that makes the difference. It's the finial at the end of the rod that can really set the tone and the look for the entire room. And you look at some of these elaborate finials. I mean, they're fun. They really are.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how important they are until you're doing something like, this is what we were talking about, these smaller panels, the side panels. That's when you can really use a fun and fancy finial. Can you also help me gauge the size of the finial that I need?
Oh, absolutely.
Is it in direct correlation to the rod size?
Most of the time, I don't know how to say that, but different rods will have different finials that go with them. But then you can see, like, for example, all of these finials come in all of these finishes. So you can
mix,
this
match.
finial in this color, or this finial in that color.
You touched on something I think is really important too, and we were talking about a client before we started, and we're talking about support brackets. You know, I think again from a professional point of view and a finishing touch point of view, there are all kinds of brackets that can support these drapes, and I know from a design point of view, I'm kind of picky about where the supports are or how many there are. Talk us through why you need that support, where you put that support.
Well, we put it up, we don't want it to come down. So being picky about where you want the bracket depending on the size. If it's a small panel and we're doing run rod, we can toggle that into drywall with no stud, nothing there. That's not a problem. But if it's 15 feet wide, 15 feet high, and it's a big traverse rod drapery, and you want it to move back and forth with a heavy blackout lining, we really need to make sure that's anchored into something solid. So we need to, when we're measuring and looking at everything, discuss where we're going to place the brackets. Because again, brackets like this, if you want to draw it back and forth, it won't go past. So if you have the drapery attached here and here, you can't draw it all the way off the window because of the bracket. So that's something else we need to talk about when we're looking at the window. When
you're looking at a window and you all are out taking measurements, are you seeing more trending with the side panels and then a shade behind it, or are you seeing full draperies here in the Low Country these days?
We do a lot of layers. We do the drape with the shade behind it.
That's our next takeaway, layers. Okay, Okay, say it again. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
With a shade with the drapery over top of it. So not just the panels, but actually full working, moving draperies.
Which makes a lot of sense. I'm seeing a lot of use now for some of these medallions. Talk to us a little bit about what a medallion is, does.
It is exactly as you see.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's a finial only facing front ways instead of sideways. And we can even do fabric treatments off of this. And we can show you some we have installed here at the store, where instead of using a rod, like you see here, we have the wood pole with the swags. We can do just the medallions with the swags. So it eliminates the whole pole and just has the medallion. So it's just a more updated, more contemporary look.
I love the look. I think it's fantastic. And I'll tell you, when you look at these, sometimes what's fun as a designer, John, he's like, but what's fun as a designer is when you take things that traditionally do one thing and do something else with them. And I know we've had fun with some of these medallions to use as hooks for hats and things like that. So there are some pretty creative things you can do with almost everything. I think it's been a great experience today talking about all of this. I really appreciate it. I know you love it again. We appreciate all of you for joining us here on Lines on Design, and I think we got a lot to take away today. I think we talked about making sure you ask the expert, making sure when you're talking about finishing touches that you include things like hardware, rods,
how it's going to mount, where it's going to mount.
How it's going to mount, where it's going to mount, and the list goes on and on. What we've established is use a darn professional. Thank you all for joining this week on Lines on Design. Have a great one. Here's what I've learned after 35 years of being a designer. If you have to hire a professional, the most important professional to hire when you're talking about finishing touches is someone who knows about window treatments, their style, their function, what you need, how to measure, how to install. Getting a professional is imperative, especially here. We talked about it before. It's almost like the neurosurgery of building a home or renovating a home. There are so many moving pieces when it comes to having a beautiful window treatment. And again, you want to do it once and you want to do it right. It's the most important thing. We're talking about finishes. We're talking about functional pieces. We're talking about rods. We're talking about fabrics. We're talking about finials. We're talking about medallions, and the list goes on and on. So my recommendation for all of you is this is the place you pick a pro.